How to conduct a case interview. Giving out mock case interviews is a very fun and beneficial activity, not only for the interviewee, but also for you, the mock interviewer. You get the chance to see things from the other perspective. You see wonderful demonstrations of what's good and what's bad in various situations. It's also a very fulfilling activity, giving out the gift of practice to others. But conducting a case poorly can do more harm than good, especially those that heavily use case books. It distracts the interviewee from seeing what's truly important and many times discourages them. In this trend nowadays, professional coaches are more and more expensive, and consulting jobs are more and more competitive. The skill of conducting a case interview is needed more than ever. So behold, this is my guide on how to conduct a good case interview. Make sure you have your good mock interviewers and become one yourselves. First things first, you should be a decent case interviewee to become a good interviewer. So all the logical foundations, all the fundamentals, all the question types, all the tips and techniques, all the business intuition should be grasped very well at this point. For the scope of this video, let's assume you already went through all of that. We will be referencing a lot of those concepts, so feel free to pause this video to go back and learn. Now back to the main topic. There are three equally important phases in case conducting: preparing the case, giving the case, and evaluation. We also know that there are two extreme ends of the case spectrum, the candidate-led and the interviewer-led cases, which require totally different styles and techniques for conducting. Even though there are some universal principles, it's helpful to talk about each in turn. In each type, we will loosely go through all three parts of conducting a case. Candidate-led cases. One of the most popular pitfalls of amateur mock interviewers is that they still conduct the case with the mindset of a candidate. Even though they come up with the case context and key question, amateur interviewers subconsciously try to solve that case themselves and somewhat form their own version of the ideal path to the answers. All the data and facts they gather about this case is along this path, and the poor mock candidate has no choice but to follow it. Then what should have been an educational and natural problem solving becomes a guessing game of trying to figure out what's on the mock interviewer's mind. With coaches that have real consulting experience, the effect of this is less severe, as the chosen path is indeed realistic and good, but for most of us trying to be mock interviewers, the subconscious paths on our minds are not necessarily optimal, and forcing poor interviewees to go along that path can be destructive. Pure candidate-led cases should be models of real projects where the candidate acts like the project team and the interviewer does not play the role of the engagement manager. The interviewer is only there to create and operate something I call the case universe. Let the candidate, aka the project team, freely explore and interact with that universe. So what does a case universe contain? Well, a problem, one or a few root causes, and lots of data, regardless of whether it is used or not. A case universe should not contain any fixed frameworks, any issue trees, any hypotheses, or any solutions. Just a case question, one or a few root causes, and lots of surrounding facts and data. The candidate's job should be to interact with that universe, to identify the root causes and come up with solutions as systematically and as quickly as possible. Along the way, he or she can be creative in using different issue trees, frameworks, and hypotheses, however needed to arrive at the root causes. Let's look at an example. Let's say I want to create a case universe of a local movie theater. A bad approach would be something like this: a movie theater facing falling revenue over the past few months. Quantity times price, no problem with price. Quantity has actually been falling. Further breakdown: quantity, using customer segments. Student segment got problems. Competitor just opened a big marketing campaign for students. This is how you solve a case, not how you give it. With this approach, it is extremely difficult for the interviewer to let the candidate freely explore the case in a natural and meaningful process. If the interviewee rightfully decides to break the case using customer segmentation, the interviewer would likely direct him or her into the profitability issue tree. Ideally, the case creation process is reversed and ever expanding. We start with the case question, one or a few root causes, and work upwards from there. And the great news is, many times, just by doing this, you realize your case universe is really creative and interesting. Continuing the above example, case problem, a movie theater with failing revenue over the past few months. Root cause, a local competitor running a big marketing campaign for students. The direct effect is that we lost, let's say 70% of student traffic to the theater. Then imagine it in your head. You realize, okay, 70% fewer students to the theater means less overall number of tickets sold, depending on the share of the customer segment. Okay, that leads you to make up some cool data on customer segments. What else? You can also imagine fewer students means fewer sales on food and beverage. This area should be hit even more severely as students eat and drink more than adults in a theater. So that leads to you drawing up some really cool data on product distribution of the theater. Even more, less students can also mean increased average ticket prices, even without the theater changing any listing price. That is because usually students get lower prices. Less of them means the overall weighted average ticket price goes down. From there, you can make up various price tables of various products and services for various customer segments. That's on the price side. How about the cost side? Now, making up all sorts of possible costs and allocations to each segment can help. You could even see how profitable each one is. Okay, zooming out a bit, what's up with the competitor? Let's say there are 2 local theaters in this small town. Why do they attack the student segment? You can imagine that their location is further away from the local high school, and our theater is traditionally better with students. From there, you can think about what drivers governing students' decisions on which theater to go to. You can also make up some details about a new college about to open in town, etc. And so on and so on. Just let your creativity take you wherever it goes. Your case universe, starting out as a simple problem plus root cause, now keeps expanding more and more with so many possible twists and turns ready to challenge even the best interviewee. This gives you so much flexibility and freedom in the next stage, which is giving the case. Giving a candidate-led case. In a real consulting project, the difficulty level not only depends on the nature of the problem, but also on how smooth the data gathering process goes. In a perfect world, for every single hypothesis one makes, there's a piece of data readily available to prove or disprove it. And for every data we request, the response also includes further information that can hint us on to where to go next, or in consulting terms, what is the next hypothesis? But in the real world, it's never that easy. Data often come with some lead time and mostly in unusable formats. Consultants spend at least about 1/3 of their time hunting, sorting, and analyzing data, making them ready to use. In case interviews, the interviewer can govern that difficulty level by adjusting the amount and detail level of data giving out. Let's say for the movie theater universe above, the interviewer has just set up a basic issue tree of price times quantity. Any normal interviewee would say something like, has there been any change to the pricing recently? To make the case really difficult, the interviewer would just say, the quoted pricing has been the same for the past several months. Technically, this is not wrong. Even though the average price has gone up, the quote prices are the same. To make the case really easy, the interviewer can just give us a pricing table, detailing the different price levels for different customer groups. That is a strong sign telling the interviewee to look into customer segmentation. To make the case moderate, the interviewer can say, the quoted pricing has been the same, but the average price has gone up. This also gives the interviewee a hint, but he or she has to work to get it. Something interesting is going on here, but you've got to dive into to find out why. Usually when giving mock cases, I tend to make my cases a little bit on the easy side. It's important to give your interviewee a positive feeling and the chance to finish the race, aka go through the full case from the beginning to the end. It's a much better way to learn than getting trashed with brutal cases and constantly feeling stuck and out of the flow. We still challenge them and make them work, but let's always get them over the hump. Once the interviewee is getting better, we can challenge him or her with a little more difficulty. When I was starting out practicing cases, I got buried by some bad mock interviewers. It took me so much time and effort to finally get my groove, and it was totally unnecessary. Don't make your interviewee go through that. What happens when your interviewee goes outside of your designed universe? The lazy way is to direct them back to your designed area with lame reasons like, we don't have that data. The better way is to quickly expand your universe to that area while still keeping the whole system working. The idea here is to still give the interviewee a fair chance to solve the case regardless of directions, as long as the methodology logically works. Continuing the above example, let's say an interviewee draws a cool issue tree of internal versus external. Within internal, he starts gathering data on company structure along with each department's role and activities. I honestly think that even with this issue tree, there is still a path leading to the root cause. We have to give the interviewee a chance to find that path, so play along and have some fun. How is the company organized structurally? Now expand your universe as you speak. It's a fairly small and simple business with two big departments. Operations, in charge of making sure products and services are up to the highest standard. That includes, but not limited to, theater maintenance, quality control, show scheduling, etc. And business, in charge of maximizing profits. That includes, but is not limited to, strategy, marketing, pricing, etc. Then drop a hint on marketing. The business department has been changing the marketing coordinator 3 times over the past 2 months. A good interviewee would catch that hint right away and dive right into the marketing area. And a couple more steps from there, the root cause will show itself. That's how a good interviewer conducts the case. Don't shut the interviewee down just because he or she uses a different issue tree or goes outside of the defined zone. Evaluation. Generally, there are 2 ways. Give it during or giving it in the end. Some people prefer one over the other. To me, this greatly depends on the level of experience of the interviewee. In the beginning, when he or she is still learning and making too many mistakes, it's much better to give feedback during their case. Both you and the interviewee remember much better what just happened. When you have an experienced interviewee who doesn't make as many mistakes, it's then better to catch up in the end. You will not destroy the flow of the case, and you'll allow the interviewee to have the most realistic experience. What to talk about in feedback sessions. Number 1, your feedback on specific points or moments of the case, if you haven't done so during the case. Number 2, overall grading on various criteria. Go to our website to download the free evaluation sheet many McKinsey interviewers use. Number 3, next steps. Give the interviewee your advice on what to notice, what to work on, and what exercises to do to improve. All of the examples in my case interview end-to-end program follow this guideline quite closely. Interviewer-led. Most cases nowadays are a mix between candidate-led and interviewer-led, but for the purpose of this video, we talk about each extreme end. In candidate-led cases, the interviewee represents the whole project team, and the interviewer represents the case universe. Interviewer-led is a very different animal. The context is much more simple and the case universe is much less important. The interviewer's role is not just about the case universe anymore. Now he or she is also the engagement manager and the interviewee becomes a poor entry-level consultant. The interviewer will run the universe and also looks for weaknesses to exploit and attack. A good interviewee is the one who can stand their ground and successfully defend his or her positions using sound logic and consulting methodologies. So how do we prepare to conduct an interviewer-led case? Draft a simple context with or without a well-thought-out case universe. You can even start a case with a piece of data or a chart. Then prepare a few satellite questions surrounding that context. Usually there are always follow-up questions you can come up with during the case, depending on the response of the interviewee. Unlike the candidate-led cases, you should have some clear idea of the solutions for each question so you can be ready to attack. There is a wide variety of question types you can choose from, and it's quite easy to come up with a few on your own. Please see the article on our website, link below, or watch a future video on the interviewer-led cases for a full list of possible question types. For example, let's prepare a case interview with the same movie theater. Context: a local movie theater with recent revenue drop. There are 2 theaters in that relatively small town with 100,000 people. Question 1. Value proposition. What factors determine a movie fan's decision on which theater to go to? An average answer would just list out factors like location, price, quality, showtime, etc. A bad answer would also list out some of those factors, but not all. A really good one would break down customers into different segments and have a different answer for each group. Question 2, market sizing. What is the market size of the movie theaters in that town? A bad answer would dive straight into the estimation. An average answer would ask for clarifications of units and definitions before jumping into the calculations. A great answer would take into consideration all qualitative insights already given in the case and even attempt to gather more, then breaking down the market sizing problem where each branch can be easily estimated. For example, insights from question 1 already tell us that customers can be broken down into various groups. Insights newly acquired here in question 2 can tell us that there are more than one way a movie theater makes money, hence a breakdown by product type: tickets, food and beverage, and advertisements. Then a mini BCG matrix can be drawn, and so on. Question 3 can be a calculation problem. Give the interviewee a set of data and ask for some math numbers. Question 4 can be about solutions. Given all the insights of the problem and root causes coming up throughout the case, what can be done to improve sales? Exploiting and attacking the interviewee. This is the fun part. Now you have a chance to be an EM, good or bad depending on how well you grasp the consulting culture and methodology. You should attack as much as you can regardless of the interviewee's level. Here, an interviewer-led case, you don't have to worry about case flow or hurting the interviewee's morale. In fact, the more you attack, the more rhythm a case gets and the better your interviewee will learn. In many situations, I don't even have to pause the case to give feedback in between. Attacking is more than enough to send the message: you ain't doing it right, and here's why. Here are a few common pitfalls I see many interviewees make that you can capitalize on. Why do you need that data? When the interviewee asks for a piece of data which doesn't serve the case direction or the running hypothesis. How do you get that data? When the interviewee asks for an unrealistic piece of data. What does this mean? What implications can you draw from this? When the interviewee comes up with a cool insight but fails to link it back to the big case problem. Does that number make sense? When the interviewee comes up with a wrong calculation and doesn't do a sanity check himself or herself. What conditions or assumptions do you also need to make that conclusion? When the interviewee makes an unsound conclusion. Is that a hypothesis or a conclusion? When the interviewee makes a questionable statement without careful wording. Will that solution work? Is there any side effect of deploying that? When you see a questionable solution. Why this? Why that? When you hear any item you don't agree with. What else? When you think the interviewee is missing some items, and etc. There are many, many more depending on the specific context. If you do this right, you don't even have to pause the case to give feedback, and in the end, do an overall evaluation similar to the candidate-led one. I hope by the time you watch this far in this video, you have the feeling that conducting mock cases can be very, very beneficial to your own learning. Indeed, that's very true. If you know how to do it right, which you do now, both you and the interviewee will learn a lot. So find a partner, have him or her watch this video, and go rock and roll. You can also see many examples of me conducting cases in the end-to-end program. Each of us should have a case prepared, ready to mock interview others. So one really cool exercise for you is to write your cases out. If you post yours on our website, I personally will take a look at it and give you some pointers on how to make it even better. You will also find a sample case context I myself prepare to coach whenever I need to. The link is here, www.mconsultingprep.com/conduct. You can also find the link below. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. This virus has been giving a lot more time than I usually have, so many new videos are coming up. Hit the notification bell and stay in touch. At Management Consulting Prep, we believe you can bring a great deal of joy, support, and learning to others. Are you a believer?